Okay, so in a previous conversation, we mentioned how we can leverage predecessors to very quickly and easily populate dates for whatever we have within a project schedule. And they're also very powerful for any time we need to adjust something, changing the duration for what we have for an individual task, or inserting a new task into what we have for any of the different phases. It's really helpful for having the adjustment of the dates for anything that's dependent upon that happen automatically. That takes us out of needing to do the constant maintenance and guesswork for what we have for any of the updates, for anything that's further downstream for some of those different tasks. Now, it's really useful and it's powerful for us to be able to leverage a tool like that, but we realize that sometimes that's not the best way to manage a project. Sometimes it's easier for us to go in and make those manual adjustments ourselves. So let's jump back into the project schedule. We can take a look at how we can do that. So within the project schedule, again, remembering that we have at our disposal the predecessor tasks that we can list out here, and some of the different ways that we can set those up to make sure that it's reflecting what we think needs to happen in the right sequence of events and the relationships between one task and the next. Now, I'll be the first to admit that as we start working with some of these details, some of it can be a little bit intimidating if you're not accustomed to working within a project schedule that relies heavily on project dependencies to be able to define what we have for dates. So the good news is, if you are in that camp, if you're feeling like this is difficult for you to try and work with, it's getting in the way of the work that you're trying to accomplish, the good news is you don't have to work with dependencies. If you want to get rid of these predecessor relationships altogether, it can be done so with the stroke of one key. So with the predecessor column header selected, pressing the delete key within your keyboard, it gets rid of all those predecessor relationships. If you've already used them to populate what you have for some starter dates, the dates will still be reflected just the way they were. It's just no longer bound to what we have for those predecessor relationships. I'm going to do a Control Z to get back to where we were before. If instead you decide you don't want to work with the predecessor relationships and you don't want to start off with any of these start dates, you could very easily do that as the first step within the project workspace whenever you're getting started. Or if you've already got something entered, you can delete all three of these columns to be able to say, don't show me anything for start, finish, or predecessor relationships. Selecting all three at once, hitting delete, you are now basically back to zero for where you started from. And this still works as a project plan. You have not broken any of the reporting that we do for any of the other links that we have. It's just getting you to a spot where you can work with the plan the way that you're most comfortable working with the plan. Because we no longer have predecessor relationships defined, we would have to be able to go in and set whatever dates that we think are appropriate, and that's one task for one entry that I've done so far. Come down to the next row, and if we think this needs to start shortly thereafter, now I've done a second row, and you can work your way through the plan as you need to. Again, this is more manual. It takes more effort both on the front end as well as maintenance over time, but it does get you out of that ball game of needing to maintain and manage predecessor relationships, which might be a little bit much for somebody who's just wanting to get into the plan and get out of the plan, go on about your day for what you have to get accomplished. So a couple of different ways you can approach it. You get to choose whichever's easiest for you.